So welcome to you all. We'll start our session by paying our obeisances to His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya. For his. So we are in our journey for chapter 15, which is titled as the Yoga of the Supreme Person. This is also called as, this is one of the shortest chapters, alongside 12th chapter, where we have just 20 verses. And this is also a chapter in Hindi. It is titled as Purushottam Yoga. So some of you might have heard about this chapter. So we are in the last section of Bhagavad Gita, the last 6 chapters, which fall under the umbrella of Jnana Yoga. Now in the 13th chapter, we learn about Prakriti, right? Prakriti, the enjoyer, consciousness. It started with Arjuna asking the 6 questions, right? And how Krishna, answers those 6 questions, right? And then we went through the chapter 14, which talked about, what are these modes and how they bind us, right? The modes of material nature. So if we are in this material world, we have to follow the laws of this material world. And it is through these 3 modes, mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. And how, we also learned how, we are, when we say we are conditioned souls, why? Because we are conditioned by these 3 modes, right? Now, today we will start with the 15th chapter, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. 15th chapter, we have divided it for convenience into 5 sections. The first section covers from Shloka 1 to 6, where it talks about, from material world to spiritual world, how by detachment and surrender. And 7th to 11th Shloka will see the transmigration of the living entities. How the living entities transmigrate from one species into another. And then 12 to 15, appreciating Krishna's position as maintainer in this world. 16 to 18, yes, this is, a very important section, which talks about, the summary of the Vedas and Vedanta. What is the purpose of Vedas? And 19 to 20, we concluded with understanding of that Krishna is everything. Krishna means knowing everything. With that, we will start with our first section, which is from material world to spiritual world. By how can we move from material world to spiritual world? By 2 things, by detachment and surrender. And we'll go a bit more depth about it. Now, just, like we always, there's a seed verse in the prior chapter, which kind of gives us the connection between the prior chapter into the next chapter. Similarly, how is chapter 15 connected to chapter 14? Yeah. So chapter 14, right, in the previous chapter, Krishna said that he is the basis and supreme shelter of Brahman. Right? We studied how in the 27th shloka, Krishna says that, this Brahman, the whole Brahma Jyoti, it is based on, what is the basis of that one? Krishna. Right? Krishna is the source. And then Krishna also said that by performing bhakti, one can transcend the material modes and attain the status of Brahman. Brahman here refers to the spiritual platform. Yeah? So bhakti is the key for us to transcend the material modes. But to attain devotion and attachment to Krishna, one needs to also develop detachment from this material. Now we are saying that bhakti is the, is the one which can help us transcend these material modes and go to the spiritual platform, right? Now, how can we get that bhakti? That's the thing. We can get the bhakti, we can attain the devotion through which, once we are attached to Krishna. Attachment is the key. Okay. So once we are attached to Krishna, we develop that, we start getting, that knowledge, right? Through knowledge, we start, getting pure, that purity comes, right? And through that, we can attain the devotion, right? So when we are talking about attachment to Krishna, that what does that mean? That it is nothing but detachment to this material. Okay, this so this is like a resultant, right? As we get more attached to Krishna, we'll see that gradually we get detached to this material, right? And then in this chapter, which is the 15th chapter, Krishna describes the process, by which he describes the process by which breaking attachment to this material. How can we break the attachment? Because see, both work vice versa, right? When we are detached to this material world, we get attached to Krishna, and also vice versa. As we get attached to Krishna, we get detached to this material, right? So this chapter describes how to break that attachment to this material. And we see a beautiful metaphor which Krishna uses, to a banyan tree, which we'll cover today, And what Krishna says that he compares this world to a banyan tree and detachment to an axe to cut it. Yeah, this material world is, a banyan tree, right? And how can we cut this attachment to this material world? We need an axe to cut a tree, right? But if this tree is the material world, then what is the axe? It is it's detachment. Okay, detachment is the axe to which it cuts. Yeah, and then he prescribes Purushottam. Okay? That is the supreme. After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? Right? It is explained also in this chapter. Like I said, it is one of the most important sections of this chapter. That it is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedas is to understand Krishna, not about fruitive activities, which is generally we term the Vedas. Right? Now, see this material world, why is it compared to banyan tree? Because banyan tree is very complex, like we can imagine. It's huge, it spreads across, it is really deep in nature. The roots are really deep in there. We see that it's really huge, right? Now, similarly, this material world is equally complex, like that banyan tree. And what Krishna is saying that we can only cut it with an axe, right? A tree can only be cut by axe. And that axe for us to get cut off from this material world is detachment, developing that detachment to the material. Right? Now, let's just have a comparison. Yeah. Now, in this material world, there is a prison, right? Now, what is that prison compared to? So, sorry, we have the prison. Inside the prison is the prisoner. We have a uniform, right, for the prisoners. Then they are put into shackles, right? And then there's a jailer who takes care of that prison, right? So for this material world, now what is the comparison? Prison is this material. We are in this prison, okay? And the prisoner, who is the prisoner?
Soul. Yeah.
Yes, the living entity. That's right, right? So we are present in this, jail, right? What's the dress? Can anybody guess or think of? What's the dress?
Body.
Correct. That's right. The body is the dress, right? The matter through which this body is made, right? And the shackles. We learned this in 14.
Passion.
Shackles, yeah, the 3 modes, right? Because we learned last chapter also that we compared it with an example like we are tied with a gold chain, a silver chain or shackles, and a iron chain. Be it any chain, gold chain was compared to mode of goodness, silver chain compared to mode of passion, and iron chain is mode of ignorance. So we have to understand that our aim is not to advance to get from That's not our ultimate aim, that we get from iron shackles to gold shackles. No. At the end of the day, even if you're tied with the gold shackles, even if you're bound with the gold shackles, you're still within that jail. Our ultimate aim should be to come out of the jail, to come out of all the three bonds. Right? And who's the jailer? The material nature. Who takes care of material nature? Durga Devi, right? Durg, right? Durg is that premises. So Durga, the one who takes care of that, right? Durga Devi. Yeah? Now, Durga Devi is given the responsibility, to do her job. She does that job to. Her job is to analyze, right? Who is eligible to go to the spiritual world and who is not, and who will remain in this material, basically, right? Now, once we, and that's what, with people who are more attached to material, world, it becomes more and more, the modes act more, right? We get more and more entangled. But once we are determined and we become devotees, rather, she helps us to transcend, because she's under Krishna, you know. So, Mayadakshena Prakriti, Krishna said before, right? The Prakriti is under him. So, Durga Devi acts under him. She's performing her responsibility for Krishna, right? So, and see, in third chapter also, we learned that shloka, right? That Sahayagna Prajashrishtva, that is 3.10, right? If we go to 3.10, we see that Krishna clarified that he created this material world as a platform for us to perform yagna, sacrifice, because it's only the performance of that yagna, sacrifice, will allow us to live happily here in this material world and to go back, and to get liberated also, right? And what is the yagna for Kali Yuga? Yes, that's right. Chanting, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Right? So that is the yagna prescribed for Kali Yuga. Right? Now we discussed this before, right? This material world is not created for our enjoyment. No, but rather it is created as a platform. That's what Krishna says in 3.10, that it is a platform for us to perform sacrifice, and by performing sacrifice the demigods will also be happy, and it will help us, by performing those sacrifices, Krishna will help us to revive our original relationship with Krishna. Okay, and whatever we do, we have to offer it to Krishna. That's what Krishna says. Okay? And that will help us to remember our original relationship, with Krishna. And what is our original constitutional position?
Servant of God.
Yes, that's exactly. So we are the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of God, right? Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Krishnera Nitya Das, right? We are Nitya Das of Krishna, right? So that's how this material world is. We should not take it as a platform of enjoyment. We have to keep remembering it's a prison. We are in a prison and we have to work to transcend this prison. Okay. Now, yeah, that's what we discussed. The purpose of this material world is to, perform sacrifice so that we can revive our original relationship with Krishna and go back to Krishna. Okay. Now we'll start with the first verse. Yeah. So, Biswa Prabhuji, will you be able to recite this?
Yes, Mother. Material world is an upside down banyan tree. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Mula Madha Sakhamaswatathang Prahurabhyam Chandasi Jasya Parnani Yasta Vedasa Vedabit. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is knower of the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita 15.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji. So, see, Krishna has started, it's a metaphor we have to understand, right? He's comparing it with Ashwatham, that is with a banyan tree. Yeah, Prabhupada translates it as banyan tree, right? And this Krishna says that Urdhva Moolam. Urdhva Moolam means, see, Moola is root. Okay. So Urdhva means upside. So the roots here are upside, like we see the reflection. So we have to understand that the original banyan tree in this picture is the spiritual world, and material world is nothing but the reflection of the spiritual, perverted reflection. And when we see the reflection, we see that the roots are Urdhva Moolam, right? And then he says that, so with roots above, that means roots are upwards, right? And then he says that Adaha Shakam. Adaha means the downwards. Shakam means, we know, branches. So the branches of this tree are actually moving downwards. The root is upwards and the branches are downwards. Okay, this is the description of the tree which Krishna is giving. Yeah, imperishable. And then he says that it is, avyayam, imperishable, right? So how imperishable? We learn that, see, this material world, the manifestation and the unmanifestation is temporal, but the elements, the matter itself is permanent, because of its, see, imperishable means because of its continuity, the matter or the elements of this material world are eternal, right? But the forms, right, the matter together makes a form. That form formed by these elements are temporal. We took the example of the building, right? When the building is broken, you will still find the elements through which the building was made, but the form is not there. The form is temporary, but the elements through which it is made is permanent, right? It is imperishable. Imperishable also means that no one can trace the history of this material world as when it started. Okay, that is also avyaya. Yeah. Now, then he says that it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and branches downwards, whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. The leaves are nothing but the Vedas. And then Krishna highlights here, what that one who understands this tree, is the knower of Vedas. Knower of Vedas does not mean that, like you have, most of the shlokas, most of the, from a knowledge country. No, it's not that. Knowers of. If a person understands this imperishable banyan tree, that means that the person understands the real purpose of Vedas. And what is the real purpose of Vedas? To understand Krishna as the Supreme. That's the purpose of Vedas. And we'll learn today, in next class, that in this chapter itself, Krishna says, Vedeshcha sarve aham eva Ved. So I am the Sar of the Vedas. He declares it in this chapter as well. Yeah. So only a person who knows the purpose of the Vedas, that to know Krishna, yeah, he will actually understand this material. Yeah. See, the tree of this material world does not have, in the purport, it's beautifully explained actually, that the tree of this material world has no end. It's complex like banyan tree, right? Banyan tree is so complex that if a bird gets into it, it doesn't know the way out because it is so huge, so vast, So they cannot see the end. Similarly, a person who is engaged in this material world, attracted and attached to this material world, will not see an end, because this material world does not have one. It is so vast, so complex. Okay. And for one who is attached to this tree, there is no possibility of liberation. Prabhupada says in the purport. If you're attached to this tree, this material world, then there is no possibility for liberation. You know, spirituality and sense enjoyment, they never go hand in hand. Prabhupada always said, you know, so you have to get detached with your sense enjoyment. Yeah, our purpose should be Krishna enjoyment. You know, whatever gives pleasure to Krishna, to perform those activities, right? Rather than the I, me, myself centric enjoyment, right? Okay. Now, if somebody understands that this tree, you know, they will understand this is actually an illusion. Yeah, it is illusion. It's Maya. You know, so if one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. That's the thing. Okay. So, and one who wants to get out of this material existence must know that this tree thoroughly by what? By analytical study. Only once we analytically study this material, this banyan tree, this material world, we will come to know that this is actually, you know, illusion. And that's why this section of Gyan Yoga, the last 6 chapters are important, because that helps us, you know, to build that awareness, you know, to have a phase off that actually this material world is binding us. And it's us not doing much. You know, we only desire, everything is done by humans, by this material nature, you know. So then only once we get that jnana, we will be able to cut off our attachment to this temporary thing and rather target to our permanent thing, which is going back to Krishna. Okay. So in the next, slide, we have tried to compare, you know, show it clearly, explain how the tree is. Yeah. So, for example, this is the banyan tree, right? And Prabhupada in the purport, you know, compares it that, well, it's very difficult to imagine such a tree in this material world, right? Whose roots are upwards and the branches are downwards. So Prabhupada gives us a very nice, you know, way to understand it, right? That say a huge banyan tree on the banks of the river, you would see the reflection of the tree on the water, you know, and that is the tree of this material. You know, and when we see a reflection on water, what does that mean? That there is the original real reality does exist. Otherwise, there will not be any reflection, right? So if material world is the reflection that and it is reflecting, that means that there is an original reality, and that is spiritual world. Okay, so the banyan tree, why upside down? Why is it upside down? Because it is reflection of the spiritual world. Okay, and then what is the surface? The surface, the tree is lying on the surface, and that surface, you know, why are the surface is actually the why are we existing? You know, material existence, we came into existence only because of
Our karma.
Desire to
karma and desires, right? So desire is the jiva's main thing, right? So only because of our desire, right? So the surface of this material world is our desire, yeah. And then, which is the first truth? Now, if we imagine this material world tree compared to this tree, roots are upwards. So what is the root through which we all evolve? What's the first truth? Who does the secondary creation?
Brahma.
Brahma, yes. So the first root, you know, is Brahmalok, right? From there, the 14 planetary systems come down, right? So what are the branches now? The branches are nothing but different planets. Okay. Now, what are the leaves? We studied it. The leaves are the Vedas, the Karma Kand section of the Vedas. Yeah. And then what are the fruits? Yes. So the fruits are, what do? We come here, we desire, we you know, as per the Vedas, we look into fruitive activities, right? And what are the fruits? What do we want out of our sacrifices? Either of these, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Either we desire for something opulence, either we desire, liberation. So it is like one of these for sure, right? The root, a banyan tree is, I think the fruits are this. Maybe I'll come in the end. So how is it nourished? So a tree gets nourished by water, and material world, it gets nourished. So if your surface is desire, how does your desire gets nourished? Through the three modes, right? So, and why banyan tree? Because like we said, it's complex. And similarly, material world is very complex, That's why, it is, banyan tree is actually the most complex tree we can comprehend in this material. It's very huge, deeply rooted. There are many roots which are deeply rooted, many branches. And like I said, once a bird enters into it, it's difficult to get out. Similarly, like us as humans, we are so deeply conditioned and so deeply rooted. We are so deeply entangled in this material world that it's not easy to find a way out of it, just like the bird. Okay, it's very difficult. And so if we understand the complex nature of this material world, we then realize that we have, all through this, what we have studied, and now knowing the complexity of the material world, we realize that actually we have wasted our time since millions of life, and if we have done the same part of enjoyment all through these millions of life, at least why not try to at least, take up what Krishna is consistently saying in Bhagavad Gita, right? At least not try to repeat, right? And focus on how to get out of it, rather than sitting and, exploring that, why is this so complex? Why are the roots so heavy? Why are the branches so heavy? It doesn't make sense, right? Why are we behind that? We should rather, our focus should be how to get out of it, right? It's like that example where we gave last time, right? That the person goes to the doctor, and the person is suffering from malaria, and the doctor is prescribing the treatment, right? As how he can get over it, over that disease. But instead of taking the treatment, if the person only keeps analyzing and thinking, which was the mosquito which bit me, through which I got the malaria, it is waste of time, right? Just follow the instructions, and you will get out of it. That's what we have to do, right? So with that, reflection of the tree, we have taken this from purport. The purports are really, again, I think it's they are amazing, so please go through them. So Hari Krishna Prabhuji, can you read this?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Reflection tree. Now there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upward. But there is such a thing. That tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water, which their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated on water. One who wants to get out of this material existence must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. Bhagavad Gita 15.1 purport.
Thank you. See, everything we get in spiritual world is permanent, and everything we have here is temporary. We face it, and we realize it, but we don't want to put efforts towards, right, to come out. That's the thing. For example, it's all about getting happiness, right? The root cause for us to do everything is to get that happiness. And real happiness actually lies beyond it. It's like outwardly happiness versus inwards, right? Inward is more important, right? So Prabhupada, I think we went through this already. But the key thing here is to come out of this material existence, we should know this tree thoroughly. We should understand we are not this body, we are soul. All of those analytical steps. Yeah. And in the purport, if you all have the book, then towards the end, Prabhupada has mentioned very nicely that a reflection is temporary, for it is sometimes seen and sometimes not seen. But the origin from when the reflection is reflected is eternal. Okay. The next statement about Vedas, the material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. Yeah. When it is said that a person knows the Vedas, it is assumed that he knows how to cut off attachment to this material world. That is exactly a person who is a knower of Vedas. He knows how to cut off the attachment to this material world. If one knows that process, he actually knows the Vedas. One who is attracted by ritualistic formulas of Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree. Yeah, he exactly does not know the purpose of Vedas. So it's not just about ritual, being ritualistic. Yeah, if you add the spirit, it becomes spiritual, our consciousness, right? But but Vedas, when we follow the Vedas, we have to make sure we are still following it spiritual. It should just not be ritual. Ritual does not involve the soul, the spirit into it. Yeah. So, okay. So moving further, then again something from purpose. I think we went through this, right? And moving to the second shloka, then Jyoti Mataji, can you read this?
Yes, Mataji. I'm on the way actually, so sorry for the background music. Different
fine.
parts of banyan tree. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the object of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive action of human society. Bhagavad Gita 15.2. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Mataji. Thank you. So Krishna is now, saying that the branches of the tree extend downwards and upwards, both way. Yeah. Now, and how are they nourished? The branches are nothing but the planetary systems, right? The planets, different planets. And the nourishment, like the tree needs water, this material world is nourished by the modes of material. And the twigs are the object of senses. Yeah. The tree has roots going down, also has the roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of the human society, right? So we have the tip of the branches are like what? The senses, right? The eyes, ears, nose, it is them which get attached to the sense objects, right? To the different sense objects. So, and that's how we do, by doing, when we transmigrate, we'll learn this later. After one enjoys the results of the activities in in one of the planetary systems, they, based on their activities, they either go above or come below in the planets, right? So like, for example, we have to, we will learn this in the transmigration section. But yeah, we keep jumping from one branch to another. That is what we have to understand. From one planet to another, from one species to another, right? Based on our karma and desire. So, and further, different parts of banyan tree. Yeah, this is from the purport. The description of the banyan tree is further explained here. Its branches spread in all directions. In the lower parts, there are variegated manifestation of living entities. like human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, etc. These are situated on the lower part of the branches. Yeah. Whereas the upper part are the higher forms of living entity, the demigods, Gandharvas, and many other higher species. So the tree starts the root with Brahmaloka, and then is the higher, the upper part is with the higher forms like the demigods. And then comes the lower, lower part of the tree is with human beings, animals, all the species, other species. Yeah. As a tree is nourished by water, this tree is nourished by three modes. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes a tract is very green. Similarly, where particular modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested. What does this mean? So, like we see, some tract of land is barren, it needs, sufficient water, whereas the other part is maybe completely green. How? How is it green? See, it depends on if we are doing activities in mode of goodness, then you will get a better species, better for you, right? If you're acting in mode of goodness, and if you're acting in mode of ignorance, then you fall down, right, into the lower species further. So it really depends, on what kind of mode of material nature you are. The greater the quantity of one specific mode, that determines your next life, right? So yeah, living entities, see, we have to understand we keep going up and down in these branches, like I was saying, based on our karmas, and earth is a platform where we perform the activities. And based on what we perform, based on what kind of activities we perform, we get either, the higher planets or the lower planets for us to jump. It's like a bungee jumping. We keep going. If we do good activities, we go to higher planets. And then once our pious activities quota is finished, once the bank balance is finished, we fall down again to earth. And based on again our activities, we either go down or up, our karmas. So that's why human form is so crucial, because it has, in this form we have the right consciousness to utilize, to go beyond this bungee jumping, what we do, up and down, we go beyond. So so with that, we move on to the further one more thing from the purport, the twigs. The first one we touch base. So the second paragraph, the real root is from Brahmaloka, and other roots are in human planetary system. After one enjoys the results of virtuous activities in the upper planetary system, he comes down to this earth and renews his karma or fruitive activities for promotion. This planet of human beings is considered the field of activities. So Prabhupada has very clearly defined that earth is our field of activities. And when we talk about animals and children also, they don't generate karma, they are living their karma. In human form on earth, we generate karma. We have to understand. Okay, so we are on earth, in this body, human form, based on whatever activities we are doing, that determines our next life. We kept on saying this, right? But we have to understand that if you take birth as a animal, you don't generate karma. Based on what karmas you have led in your past life, you are just living that karma. Even with children, if they do something wrong, they don't generate karma. They are living that karma. Okay, so that's why we say any mistake done is for children. Okay, so with that we move on to third and fourth shloka. Now, first and second shloka describes the tree, right? Now, third and fourth shloka, Krishna says the real form of the tree cannot be understood completely. So it's better for our tiny brains not to overanalyze this banyan tree, because he's clearly saying that, because there is no such real form which our brain can, experience. It is not easy. It is so complex to understand. It is really complex. So rather than just speculating or figuring out, we should just try to follow the instructions of how to get out, how to cut this material world, how to cut this attachment. That's what we should focus on. Okay. So cut the tree. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with weapon of detachment. Okay. Thereafter, one must seek the place from which, having gone, one never returns. We should start seeking them. Yeah? And there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. It's very important, these two shlokas, because this gives us kind of a solution. Yeah, we have to cut this tree. And what is the weapon? Like for a tree, we use an axe. What is the weapon we are using here to cut the material world? Detachment. And how will that detachment generate? The axe has to be really sharp when you have to cut such a complex tree, right? How would you sharpen this axe of detachment? By determination. If you have a strong steadiness, that's why we say, like in spiritual life, the key is steadiness, consistency. That is one of the key factors which can help us to eventually surrender to Krishna. So this axe can be sharpened with determination, strong determination. And once we are determined, then we surrender. And the surrender, process is very nicely explained in next verse. Okay, we'll go through. So again, you will see quite a lot taking from words, because we don't want to miss the very important points which are highlighted by Prabhupada. Okay? So search for Father. Yeah. So Kavya Mataji, can you read this?
Yes. Search of Father. When entangled with the material expansions of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. Yet one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father is the son of such and such a person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by the Garbhodaksha Sai Vishnu. Finally, in this way, when one reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the end of research work. One has to search out that origin of this tree, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in the knowledge of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality, and by knowledge, one can cut off the connection and actually become situated in the real tree. Bhagavad Gita 15.3 to 4 purport. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you. So Prabhupada is again highlighting here, there is no point in just speculating. It's like a child, or us sitting and reading something, right? Say our school notebooks, yeah. A child sitting and trying to understand some concept of science, sitting on own, trying to explore, the speculation works more in that way. You got struggling on your own, and that may lead you to speculate to things, to go to 10 different places to find that and to understand that concept. And 10 different places you will get more confused. So it is very important. How will the child, why does the child need to go to the school? Because the child will be, tailored, right? With the right association of teachers, with the right instructions coming in, the child can comprehend that concept much easier. That speculation is not needed. So similarly for us, we should not speculate rather than, just doubting. We should just slowly go step by step, to understand what is the root, right? And as we go through our scriptures with faith, we'll see slowly, how everything in particular universe is coming from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. From Garbhodakshaya Vishnu's navel, Brahma comes. And how, from Brahma, all the living entities and all the species are generated, right? And then we'll, as we scrutinize more, as we learn more, we'll understand that, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is nothing but coming from Mahavishnu, who are the expansions of Krishna. So it is very important for us to search out the origin. Search with with faith on the scriptures, not with speculation. Yeah? And once we know this, we understand that, actually, this knowledge helps us. When we gain this knowledge, it helps us to develop that kind of detachment with this material world, because we understand that this is nothing but an illusion, right? So right association is the key. It can either pull us up or make us fall down. Association is the key. So next verse explains us, about surrendering process. What quality do we need to surrender, right? So this is a very important verse. So those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attains the eternal kingdom. See, false prestige, illusion, and false association. In the purport, Prabhupada explains this false prestige, this pride, we know that it is one of the key reasons why, we feel we are controller. We feel that pride. I can control this. I can control this. I could manage to get something achieved. That pride comes. And that pride is because of what? It is because of the illusion. We are in illusion. We think that we did some activity, because of that the result happened so and so. Whereas if we really scrutinize ourselves, I cannot even control my sneeze. If I'm getting a sneeze, I cannot even control my sneeze. I cannot even control my cough. I cannot control my headache. We cannot control anything for us. We are in an illusion that we can control. And that's one of the reasons why we are here in this material world. Why? Because we wanted to enjoy. We wanted to be independent. We wanted to be the controllers. That's why we said, right, we are also called as Purusha, right, in 13th chapter. So, and this illusion, when we are in illusion, that results in false association. We tend to associate with people who increase that illusion for us, who praise us for the wrong things. And we are more into illusion, but yes, and then we kind of develop that favoritism with the people, some people who give us that false prestige, that false appreciation. We make them as our favorites. We mark them, bookmark as our favorites. And then what happens? We are always around those people. That false association is making us always be in that hell. It's like temporary happiness, right? So it is, and that is what makes us puffed up to think, that we are the Lord of this material. We can control, One has to, Prabhupada says in the purport, next one, I think we have taken it from the purport. So Ramaprabha Mataji, can you read this?
The surrendering process. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the lord of material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. When one is freed from such a false notion, he become free from all the false association caused by familiar, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavad Gita 15.5 perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very beautifully explained, the Prabhupada, that pride, it will not allow us to be humble. And humility, it's the most basic quality we need to have to develop in spiritual life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, right, Trinadapi Sunichena, Tharorapi Savishnu, Amanina Manadena, Kirtanina Sada. So, pride, that's why we say also in English, pride comes before fall, right? So, this pride is, yes, it is, we need to work on this, that false prestige, what we have within ourselves, and that will come down when we realize, when we gain, see, when we start scrutinizing and reading, gaining that real knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, it actually makes us come out of this illusion that I am the controller, I am really great. Because then you realize that when you are one of the entities in this whole, say, for me, in this whole society, this society is one of the societies in whole of the city. The city is one of the city in whole of the state. The state is one of the state in the whole of the country. This country is one of the country in whole of the continent. And the continent is one of the continents. And that is, then you realize, and then going further up, how we learned that the duration of Brahma's life, right? It's so huge. What are we? It makes us realize we are actually nothing. So that false prestige, what we have, that, oh, I'm great, that really comes down. It is really smashed when we try to go through, that scriptures. Right? So it may not be possible to surrender 100% initially. Yes, but only when we start chanting, reading, hearing, we have already started our process in surrendering to Krishna. Why? Because we are surrendering to start with our time with Krishna, right? We are blocking that time for Krishna to do these activities. So that's initial steps of surrender. We have already in the process, right? So gradually we have to gear up. That's the key thing, Only when we keep doing the math sums, only when the first standard student keeps doing the math sums practice, only then he will go to the second standard to understand the sums complexity. But if we think that, no, this is complex, I won't want to do it, then, we will never end up going further, progressing further, even in this material world. Then what to talk about spiritual, right? Practice and determination is the key, right? Steadiness, that practice initially, yes, and steadiness in that practice, consistency, and then with determination, then we will be there. Okay, then coming to the next verse, 6th verse, very nice verse, and very famous verse as well. Qualities of Goloka Vrindavan, spiritual planet. Na tat bhasyate suryo na shashanko na pavakah yad gatvana nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material. Krishna is saying this, right? Na tad bhasyate surya. His planet is not illuminated by sun or moon, like our planet, right? Nor by fire and electricity. Why is he mentioning that? Because for us, our tiny brain cannot concept that any light can come out without fire, or electricity. We cannot comprehend it. Without these factors, sun, fire, electricity, can we think that there can be light generated? No. So Krishna is clearing all of those, you know. So his planet is not illuminated by any of these. That is this plan. That is his planet. That's the characteristics of his planet. And those person who reach there, they never come back. That's what he said. You know, because everything is illuminated. You know, everything is coming out from self-effulgence of Krishna, from his body, light, the self-effulgence. Yeah. And a living entity will not be satisfied until he reaches that supreme being. You know, because see, our constitutional position is, you know, to serve, service and love. These are our two basic. This is our nature. You know, and that's what Krishna is saying. You know, that you have to come back. You know, this is the planet where it is. Right now, with the interest of time, maybe I'll will wind up the session here. And next session will cover, you know, Shloka 7, from Shloka 7, which talks about transmigration of living entities from one planet to another. Like we transmigrate in this from one body to another. So we'll cover that maybe in the next session.